Welcome to a brand new episode of Purpose Today. I'm your host, Dr. April Dobson, and I'm very excited about today's episode because I know it's going to help so many professionals globally. We're going to talk about purpose-driven career pivots when the path seems unclear. And if you stay tuned to the very end, you're going to hear 5 specific steps that you should take as a professional before you begin to implement your strategy when you need to pivot and your path seems unclear. Have you ever had something that you know you have a deep desire to do? You know that it's time for you to pivot professionally, but you're just not sure where you need to start. Well, don't go anywhere. After these special sponsorship messages, I'm going to share what you need to successfully pivot even when the path doesn't seem clear. I invite you to grab a pen and paper or your iPad, whatever you want to take notes with today, because you're going to be able to go from being stuck to unstuck. You're going to be able to go from being unclear to clear. And these 5 specific steps are going to help you before you start your strategy implementation to pivot. So stay tuned. We'll be back after these special messages talking about purpose-driven career pivots when the path seems unclear. 5 essential steps that you'll use as a professional.
Dreaming of writing a book, launching a podcast, or creating a digital course? Ready to finally align your career, creativity, and impact? The Purpose Aligned Life Premium Coaching Cohort is here to help you turn purpose into reality. You'll receive tailored services, a personalized one-on-one assessment, 10 weekly group sessions, and exclusive strategy session, all for your desired transformation.
And if you're interested in the Purpose Aligned Life Premium Group Coaching Program, then you'll want to stay tuned. There's a link that is in the chat that you can utilize for information on scheduling a session for more information, or you can send an email to admin@purposetoday.com. Well, I am super excited about our session today. We're talking about purpose-driven career pivots when the path seems unclear, and 5 specific steps that you can take as a professional before you begin to implement your strategy. So I hope you have your pen and paper. And I'm going to talk about these 5. The first one is to identify your overall vision, then determine your purpose alignment positioning. 3rd, examine your deep desire. 4th, assess the gap in resources. And 5, leverage the lessons learned. So that is what is ideal if you want to ensure that you are clear on a path to pivot. Now let's talk about the first one. The first one is identifying your overall vision. Now, before you set out to do anything in life and in your career, you should have a clear vision on where you're going. Now, one of the things that helps you to achieve what you're dreaming about is when you've written it down. So if you haven't taken time to write down your vision, you want to actually do that today. I encourage you to do that today. And I do believe in the scripture that talks about writing the vision, making it plain, so that he who reads it can run. So what is the vision for your life? What is the vision for your career? What are you hoping to achieve? And so you have to have a clear vision. Do you desire to change the lives of 1 million people worldwide by ensuring that people have access to the appropriate care? Do you have a desire to equip professionals with practical knowledge on how to use AI to use as a force multiplier to enhance their lives and their career? Maybe you have a desire that youth who are in a certain region of the world, that they're provided books so that they can read. Maybe you have a desire to eradicate poverty. Maybe your desire is to ensure that everyone can read and you want to focus on a specific age group, you want to focus on a specific area that you have impact. Whatever your vision is, you want to ensure that it is written down. So if you haven't done that, I encourage you to take the time now to write down your vision. And that's the first step. Now, I want to talk about the second one, and that's determining the purpose, alignment, positioning. So, you want to be clear on your purpose. And I've spoken previously that there are so many different ways that we can pursue and achieve purpose in our lives. And we're continuing to grow, we're continuing to evolve. And so you want to identify what is your purpose and how you can best align with your purpose. So now that you have your vision that's written down, now you want to think about what is your purpose and how does that vision fit into align with your purpose. Now, I know I used so many different examples, and perhaps your purpose is to create leaders, and maybe your vision was to ensure that at least that people were equipped on how to utilize AI tools to be a force multiplier. So maybe you can implement those strategies and that practice in with leadership tools. So maybe you're creating a course for leaders. Perhaps you are consulting with leaders, but you want to figure out what alignment looks like. And once you've identified what alignment looks like, then how does that vision align with your purpose? Now, I do encourage you to ensure that as you're identifying what purpose, alignment, positioning is for you, then you're also writing those things down. Now, when we talk about the positioning of purpose, alignment, then maybe there are some things that you need to do or that you need to reshape in your life because you're not fully aligned. Let me just use for an example. You know that at this phase in your life, to fully pursue and fulfill purpose, it requires that you start coaching others, or it requires that you write a book. So now you have to ensure that you are positioning yourself in terms of your time, in terms of your resources, in terms of what you are making a priority, that you've positioned yourself for that. Sometimes we identify our vision, sometimes we identify purpose alignment, but we don't take the time to ensure that we have shifted in the areas that we need to shift so that we can be aligned. It may require that you schedule time in your day for writing. It may require that you schedule time in your day to put together a curriculum for your coaching program, whatever that might be. But it's so important that you properly position yourself. It may also require that you update your LinkedIn profile, because if you are shifting your direction into something that is purpose aligned and you're not presenting yourself in your resume or in your LinkedIn profile or on your other social media accounts to align with your purpose, then you're going to continue to have opportunities. You're going to continue to have interest in what may not necessarily align anymore for you as it relates to purpose. Now, the third one, and again, this is what you do, this is what's ideal, right? These 5 things that are necessary prior to making the strategy implementation. You have to start with these 5 areas first. So we're going to go into the third, and the third one is examining your deep desire. Now, oftentimes when it comes to purpose alignment, when it comes to vision, we don't take the time that is necessary to really examine our deep desire, to put that deep desire on paper, to take the opportunity to even begin to imagine how we can walk out the deep desire, how the desire can go from a desire that we have deep within us to a realization. And if you can have the desire and you can act on the desire purposefully and intentionally, then that can come to fruition in your life. I have mentioned on previous occasions, I am a woman of faith. And the Bible talks about that if we delight ourselves in the Lord, that He gives us the desires of our heart. And so God puts desires deep inside of us, and He puts those desires there so that He can fulfill them. But we need to come into agreement with what He is revealing to us, those deep desires that He's given us. If we are resisting the very deep desire that God is placing on the inside of us, then we can delay how quickly that desire comes to fruition and manifests in our lives. What is it that you are desiring? What is your deep desire? So I want to recap on the first three that we've talked about, because these are the things that are ideal, right? Identifying your overall vision, ensuring that you are clear on your vision, and not only that you're clear on your vision, but that you've written that vision down and you have it so that you succinctly know what your vision for your life is, what your vision for your career is. Because if you're not clear on the direction that you're headed in, where you're going, then you're going to often fall short. We can't go through life haphazardly, but we need to be intentional and purposeful about what we're doing. And then the second area that's ideal, and hopefully you will have caught on that these five things, it's an acronym. And then the second one is determining your purpose alignment positioning. Again, first, how are you purpose aligned? What is your purpose? How are you aligned? And how do you need to reposition yourself so that you are better aligned with your purpose? And again, this is something that needs to be intentional as well. These are areas that you want to ensure that you are reflecting every day and reflecting on how you are aligning with purpose and how you need to adjust. And if it's necessary for you to make some changes to your resume, to your LinkedIn portfolio profile, to your portfolio, if you have a portfolio that you're making available, all of these things need to be updated accordingly. And then even your daily activities, what you're saying yes to. And then the third one is examining the deep desire. Now, I want you to take a moment and think about the deep desires that you have ignored, because oftentimes those deep desires that we ignore or that we have ignored cause us to slowly come out of alignment. It causes us to slowly acquiesce. It causes us to fail to grow in the way that we need to grow. So it's very important that you're taking the time to examine those deep desires. Oftentimes, our deep desires reveal purpose, reveals where the direction that God is taking us in. I can think of several different deep desires in my lifetime that I have had. One of them being one of the books that I authored a few years ago. And I had ideas on paper and I had started writing, but I had not fully fulfilled that deep desire. And the moment that I actually took action, intentional, purposeful action, I can recall speaking with a friend, Dr. Neil Hambright, and we were both talking about ideas that we had about a book, and those books aligned. And we actually collaborated and co-authored The Autonomous Career. He was dreaming about something, I was dreaming about something, and we were able to partner and be intentional, and that deep desire came to fruition. I also think about a deep desire that I had prior to starting my doctorate program. And that deep desire, when acted upon, resulted in me being accepted into a doctoral program, completing the program, and even today, even post retirement from the federal government, as I am coaching and consulting, I'm still using that degree, what I gained going through that degree program. So I want you to think about the deep desires that you have. I can think about clients who I have had who have had deep desires that they have not acted on because they were not clear on a strategy, and being able to walk them through that process. And now they're on the other side and they are living what they were dreaming about. So I want you to actually think about your deep desires that you have, that you've ignored. Put them on paper and start taking action today using these 5 steps, and you'll see a major difference in your life. Now, let's get into the 4th one. I do believe it's very, very critical for us to ensure that we are not only looking at our overall vision, identifying that we are determining our purpose aligned positioning, and that we're also examining those deep desires. And after we've done those 3 things, then we can proceed on to the 4th, and that is assessing the gap and the resources. Now, this is where a lot of people actually get hung up. They are able to identify their vision. They're able to identify what positions them to be purpose aligned. They're able to clearly articulate their deep desires, but they get stuck because they don't know where to go from there. And so they identify and realize that they have gaps, but they stop there. They don't go to close the gap with the resources. And so sometimes your gaps can be closed through researching and identifying information online. Sometimes some of your gaps can be closed by watching a YouTube video. Sometimes your gaps can be addressed by reading a book. Sometimes your gaps can be addressed by watching reels on social media, right? But sometimes you need a formal coaching program. You need a mentor to be able to close those gaps. And I encourage you to really identify the gaps that you have in filling your deep desires, the gaps that you have in positioning yourself for purpose alignment, the gaps that you have in achieving the vision that you've identified. And if there are books that you can read, if there are podcasts that you can watch, if there's YouTube videos that you can watch, if there's rules that you can watch, by all means, do that. If there's a certification that you can do, if there's a formal degree program that you can do, consider doing that. But many times, we need to speak with someone who has already had success in the areas that we desire to have success. Identify a coach, identify a mentor who has been successful in achieving what you desire to achieve, so that they can help you with the strategy to get you from where you are to where you desire to be. Now, I can tell you, just because you're not clear on something doesn't mean that you pause or you freeze or you stop. I know that, I was led to go to Ghana, and God led me to go to Ghana. And there were so many things that I did not know. And this is so new for me. And I took a trip to Ghana to do some administrative and logistics things, and to start having solutions and preparing myself for the relocation. And while I was there, God just opened doors. There's just so many doors that He opened, and so much favor that He gave me, because I was willing to move and I was willing to go, right? So I encourage you, even if you don't have the full big picture, even if you're not clear on everything, on the full path, take these steps that I'm giving you. And when you get to the gaps, start identifying resources, start identifying people who you can talk to who have been successful with what you're desiring to achieve, with what you're dreaming about, with what will allow you to be purpose aligned so that you can move forward. It's so important. I think about a client who was at a point in her career that she wanted to shift from providing direct patient care into a leadership role. She didn't know the first place of where to start. And after some coaching and revising, working with my company to revise her resume and giving her some other strategies and some things to do, I can say that she was successful in achieving that goal. And she landed a leadership position in the healthcare space, and she is now in a director role doing what she was dreaming about, but what she did not have a clear path on. I encourage you to also consider informational interviews. They are a great way to start with having questions that you have answered. And I encourage you to go into that informational interview with the questions written down and asking specific questions to help to move you forward. I also encourage you to seek out specific resources for what you are desiring to do. Seek out specific resources that will help you to position yourself for purpose alignment, that will help you to fulfill the vision that you have put on paper. That is so important. And in today's digital age, today's digital age in the world of technology, having the World Wide Web, even having AI resources, there are different AI tools that are great for searching and researching. Being able to appropriate those will be very helpful for you. So I encourage you to use the resources that are available to you. Seek out mentors, seek out coaches, and also schedule informational interviews to really help you to actualize what you're dreaming about, to help you to ensure that your vision is made and brought to fruition. So we talked about the first four, and I want to continue to reiterate these and ensure that you're able to put these into practice. These 5 steps are going to help you if you utilize these 5 steps. Now, the next step that you want to do is to leverage the lessons learned. So you've identified your overall vision, you've determined your purpose alignment positioning, you've determined your deep desire, you have assessed the gap and the resources. And so now, fifthly, you want to leverage your lessons learned. So those are the 5. That's ideal for when you want to pivot, even when the path seems unclear. So let's talk more about leveraging the lessons learned. Oftentimes, once you start having conversations with coaches, with mentors, once you start looking at resources that are available to you, reading books, looking at YouTube videos, watching reels, you'll often discover that you have misconceptions about whatever it was that you were desiring to do. Sometimes you might believe that there are more obstacles or more hurdles when actually there aren't. I think about a recent group coaching session that I had with clients who are in the Purpose Aligned Life group coaching program. And there were 2 of the clients who had a desire to start a podcast. They both had some trepidation, they both had some angst, they had some areas of concern, regarding starting the podcast. And what we did in that particular session, I had 1 week that I talked about what you need to do to successfully launch a podcast. And on the following week, which was this past Tuesday, we actually put many of the things that we learned in the prior week into practice. And we were able to have mock podcast interviews. They had the opportunity to be a host, they had the opportunity to be a guest on a podcast in this mock sessions that we had, and they absolutely loved it. They had a fun time, and they learned that it was not as challenging. They thought that it was going to be a challenge, and these were challenges that were not really going to be a challenge. And so I say to you that you might be thinking, right, that something is hard to do. You might be thinking that something is a challenge, and it's really not. It's just having the right information, having the right insight to be able to do what you're dreaming about doing. So if you follow these 5 steps, these ideal steps, then that is going to help you. So when you leverage the lessons learned, some of your lessons learned, as I stated, can be misconceptions. Some of the lessons learned can simply be that you needed to gain knowledge in an area, and now you've acquired knowledge, you've acquired a skill that you can now apply. Some of the lessons learned might be steps that you need to take specifically for what you're aiming to do. I can recall when I was going into the PMF program, and I had discoveries on the steps that were necessary to become a PMF after being selected as a finalist. I can think about different clients who I have helped who, once they had insight on how to achieve what they were dreaming about, it was simple, after they had that insight. So for someone who is wanting to progress in their career, learning how to retool their LinkedIn profile, learning how to leverage LinkedIn and leverage other platforms, it was very beneficial. So again, you want to make sure that whatever your lessons learned were during this process, when you were going through the gaps and when you were identifying resources, that you now leverage those, right? So what seemed to be unclear before should now be clear. What seemed to be a barrier should now be removed. It should be something that you can say that you have overcome. Now, I want to recap on those 5 because these are all necessary before you get into the implementation step of your strategy. You have to start with these 5. So again, the first one is identifying your overall vision. The second one, determine your purpose, alignment, positioning. The third, being able to examine your deep desires, and not just examining them, but acting on them. 4, assessing the gap in your resources. And then 5, leveraging those lessons learned through the process. Now, once you've gone through all of these steps, you should have a very clear path on how to successfully pivot. Now, once you have that clear path, now you can start strategy implementation. So from all of this, you can take those lessons learned, develop the strategy that's needed for you to make a pivot, and then start implementing that strategy. Now, as you're implementing your strategy along the way, if you ever come up with any gaps, right, along the way, as you're implementing the strategy, then you can always go back to your resources. You can always reach out to a mentor or a coach, but you should be using all of this information that you have compiled, all of the steps that you've taken, and that should help you to have a clear path. And it's important that as you're navigating, even if the idea arises that you may not be experienced in an area, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. And oftentimes, experience that you have can be reapplied in another environment. It can be repurposed. It can be transferable into another environment. So it's very important that you move forward with your strategy implementation using all that you've gained and gleaned, but also reminding yourself of the vision that you identified. Also, reminding yourself of your purpose, reminding yourself of the necessity of continuing to position yourself to be purpose aligned, reminding yourself of those deep desires and how when you come into agreement, right, with the desire that God has given you and you're willing to act and move on it, that God begins to fulfill those desires. I think about even when I had the desire and prompting to start a podcast and talk show. I knew nothing about starting a talk show and podcast. But once I made the commitment that I was going to do it, God started providing resources for me. And so as you're executing on your strategy, again, if you continue to have gaps, you go back to resources. You use the same process, you use the same approach to help you to overcome any obstacles that you face when you are implementing your strategy. So I do appreciate you all watching. I try to keep views of the chat to see what questions may have been added. If there's anything that I missed or a question that you have now, feel free to put those questions in the chat, or feel free to send an email to admin@purposetoday.com. Again, that's admin@purposetoday.com. I don't take it for granted anyone who watches the live stream. I don't take it for granted anyone who watches the archived video after the fact. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Purpose Today. It has been such a pleasure to speak with all of you today and to talk about something that I know is needed. People need tools, they need steps that when the way is unclear, they can pivot successfully. So it's been an honor talking about purpose-driven career pivots when the path seems unclear. 5 essential steps for professionals. I appreciate you tuning in to this episode of Purpose Today. If you feel that you need to pivot, but you still feel that there is a degree of uncertainty on how, you can register for the From Unfulfilled to Unstoppable Purpose-Driven Career Pivot Masterclass, or you can email us at admin@purposetoday.com. Again, that email is admin@purposetoday.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Purpose Today. I invite you to tune in to a future episode, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode. Make it a wonderful, purpose-filled day and an amazing weekend.
Dreaming of writing a book, launching a podcast, or creating a digital course? Ready to finally align your career, creativity, and impact? The Purpose Aligned Life Premium Coaching Cohort is here to help you turn purpose into reality. You'll receive tailored services, a personalized one-on-one assessment, 10 weekly group sessions, and exclusive strategy session, all for your desired transformation.